Were you ever that 1 in 1 million? If so, what's your story? Not sure if this is a blessing or a curse, but I'm an extremely tall human. 7 feet 3. Yes, really. Not sure how rare that is. For my 7th birthday we went to Disneyland. They just happened to be having a car a day giveaway when we were there. For my 7th birthday, Mickey Mouse gave me a Pontiac Firebird. I've got the middle toes on both feet webbed. So did Stalin. Quack. I slept wrong one night and pinched a nerve in my neck so severely I lost the right side of my body. It just went silent like it wasn't there for months. I woke up in the worst pain I've ever experienced and couldn't talk, move or do anything. The ER doctor thought I was having a stroke. My doctor had never seen a case as severe as mine and it was purely a freak accident. Recovery took months but I have use of my leg and hand again, with some numbness. Other than pain and spasms I'm mostly back to normal. I was struck by lightning while talking on a landline. This was in the early 90s. Lightning struck the telephone line and traveled through the handset to my ear. My parents drove me to the ER. I couldn't talk very well. My brain knew what I wanted to say, but my mouth didn't want to say it. I had a terrible stutter. My doctor told me that I had had a dose of good, old-fashioned electroshock therapy. My speech was normal the next day, but I get a terrible headache whenever a thunderstorm comes through. Edit, or Tokyukumber edit 2. Thank you for the gold. I once guessed a 6-digit random combination on the first try. It was the only try I planned to give, as a kind of scratch pad whatever moment. I have completely unexplained hearing loss in my left ear. I had a cyst in it when I was 6, and the surgery to remove it and fix the ear was successful. When I was about 12, I woke up one morning with a killer headache and ear ringing, and after 3 days it went away and so did my hearing. Doctors did multiple examinations and an MRI and they said it should be totally functional. It just isn't. 1 in a million case. My ex was struck by lightning several times and lived. Died in a car accident though, so not as lucky as he claimed to be. When I was a teenager I had just started working at the local Sears Auto Center Express Lube shop and on day 1 did a quick orientation and my first oil change. The manager walked away when he felt I was good to go and the oil change went well. Fast forward a few days later my manager asked me to come into his office and he explained that the oil filter I had used had one huge flaw. I didn't know what that was and it turned out the filter was pressed on backwards into the filter can and it wouldn't allow oil to flow in and it damaged the motor. They had to purchase a new motor for the person and I still kept my job. He said it was a 1 in a million chance that would have happened and it did on my first oil change. I had AFM, acute flaccid myelitis, when I was really young. It's like weak polio if that makes sense. My legs struggled to keep me up and I was consistently collapsing. However, the disease wasn't discovered at the time so I wasn't diagnosed. I was in and out of hospitals several times a week, being tested for all sorts of bone cancers. When the disease was discovered I matched every description of it perfectly. But now, I am running cross country and doing alright. I own a Lego minifigure called MR Gold. This particular minifig was to celebrate the 10th series of the Lego figurine line. They are sort of like grab bags. You can feel for them but you don't know what minifigure you're really going to get. So because they were celebrating they thought it was a good idea to only make $5,000 of these. Anyways, when I was younger and even now I was really good knowing which figures they are simply by looking at the figures pieces and feeling out those pieces. I really like the minifigures cause I thought they were really cool and unique so I really wanted MR Gold and me and my mom hunted for it for a long time but after a while I gave up. Then one day I was at the Lego store and felt the distinct diamond piece and freaked out. Finding this figure was a downright fantasy. I'm 18 now and still want to relive 12-year-old me's pure joy as he opened the packaging. Edit. Thanks for making me MR Gold twice. Also 2 words. The first one I don't know about the exact odds, but I was born on the 7th of July 1977 and weighed 7 pounds and 7 ounces. Sadly though I clocked in at 6:50 am. The other is that around the age of 14 I started to notice the outsides of both of my feet starting to get much wider. After a couple of years of buying expensive custom made shoes they decided to perform surgery on my feet. Turned out I had extra muscle growth along with something else I don't recall at the moment. My podiatrist told me he submitted a scholarly article on it. May also have been genetic as when my dad was 3, he developed an extra toe growing out of each one of his big toes. Uterus ruptured into my bladder after birth of my youngest. It was 1/4 in. Away from a major artery. Nearly died. I am allergic to the cold. Like literally. I get intense hives, swelling, I pass out, and throw up. Doesn't even have to be freezing. Below 45 degrees without a jacket and I can't do it. I have to carry an EpiPen with me in the event that I drink something too cold or have a severe reaction. Edit. Thank you kind stranger for my first silver. Not quite 1 in a million, but close enough. As a child, I had an extremely rare autoimmune disease. On top of having an extremely rare illness, I developed the rarer and most dangerous of the symptoms. My kidneys started shutting down. Most kids recover from this disease, but not always the ones with kidney issues. I was extremely lucky. I did not have to go on dialysis, and my kidneys eventually reached normal functioning levels. It took a decade to be completely cleared of the disease. My mother likes to call me a miracle child not only because of this, but because she was not supposed to be able to have a kid due to health issues, and had several miscarriages before my stubbornness decided to be born. Weird it. My sperm did the race straight to the egg. 1. And now I've retired. Thank you. That is all. This is my mum's story and I've posted it before, but she once called her friend back in the day on the landline and another lady answered. My mum asks if her friend was there and the lady says sure I'll get her. My mum's friend hops on the phone and asks how she was here. Turns out my mum got a number wrong when dialing. Called a random house where someone was hosting a Tupperware party and my mum's friend just happened to be attending it. What are the odds of that? It not quite 1 in a million, but it sure felt like it. When I graduated high school I was offered a full ride scholarship, entirely based on academic merit, to study the program I loved more than anything at the school I'd dreamed of going to for years. The school in question was notorious for giving very few scholarships, and the particular scholarship I won is awarded to very few students each year. I'm still pinching myself sometimes. Edit. Wow, my first silver. Thanks guys. A bird got into my room through a tiny hole in the ceiling and took it on me. Burb. Hole in ceiling. I was diagnosed with a rare cancer that happens in males more often than females. Usually happens to patients between 45 and 60 and happens in the abdomen or legs. I was a 34-year-old female and it happened in my right arm. For the record, I'm in remission, but I couldn't believe I defied everything about the stupid ducker. Edit. Okay, I'm going to be that person. My first gold. Thank you kind stranger. Aggressive fallopian tube cancer. 2 years later I had a malignant pleural tumor. Also have late diagnosis of stage 2 and 3 urogenital reflux, which is usually discovered before a kid is out of diapers. I was too old for the surgeons to fix it properly. Also I'm a redhead with blue eyes, hitchhiker thumb, double jointed and have double row of eyelashes, and my kid is a pretty close copy despite her bio dad having dominant genes, half Japanese. I was kidnapped when leaving work and held for 18 months, along with 2 other girls. The guy who took us claimed himself to be an ineffable lower god, and used cult tactics, manipulation and control to have us be his family. I was allowed to leave to the grocery store as an errand, but knew if I didn't come back the others would receive my punishment. I finally got away by stabbing my captor when I believed he was going to kill me. Edit. I did a podcast about the experience, and if you'd like to give it a listen, go check out. Bought $3 worth of pong balls at one of those games at the state fair. I think it was 10 balls, and the grand prize is in the middle and you have to land it in a small glass container. I was having fun and just decided to throw it by flicking my wrist in a weird way. It bounced around for a while and landed right in the red glass container, which was the grand prize. Even the worker was surprised that I got it. Had to walk around the state fair with a giant Charmander plush toy after that. I have the rarest type of synesthesia, lexical gustatory. It means I taste words. As a driver in Seattle, I use my turn signal. I'm allergic to potatoes. Never met someone else who is, so I guess it's 1 in a million. Never eaten chips or fries. Born with Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. Had surgery at the age of 17. Many people don't have that diagnosis until they are old and grey. I had a freak accident that revealed it. Thanks everyone for the comments. After reading so many comments about people having WPW, or have a loved one with it, I'm now curious as to why there is no subreddit for it. It's apparent little is known about WPW to many. I am a 19-year-old male. In August of last year, I was driving with my sister, when suddenly her face turned cold. "Gavin, your eyes are yellow," I remember her saying. I quickly pulled down the passenger's mirror, and to my horror, 2 yellow eyes radiated back at me. Fast forward, I spent a month being sick. The initial diagnosis was hepatitis A, and back to the doctor. Nothing was better. Things were worse in fact. Was sent to the ER. Then to the liver transplant unit at UCSF. By this point my eyes had turned muddy orange, and my pee was the color of a mahogany tree. Anyways, the team of liver doctors at UCSF managed to save my liver. I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis. Oh, and my eyes are white again. I was born 1 pound and 6 ounces in 1998. Doctors said I had like a 15% of surviving or something like that. They also said that if I did survive I would have been a vegetable. So months pass. Funny thing was I came out of the hospital on the day I was due. Came out in February, left the hospital in June. While I am still forming as a baby and it's 20 years later and I'm alive and healthy. I can walk, talk and all the normal things. Only thing really wrong with me is my right eye is hanging on a thread cause of reasons and I'm socially autistic. I guess that's 1 in 1 million. Every single time I get some kind of illness, every doctor I go to says they've never seen a case like mine before. Every ducking time. My dad once asked me for a quarter. I tossed it to him and it went directly into his shirt pocket. My life. And not in the cliche OMG the sperm made it the egg kind of way. My father was married to somebody else and was officially missing and was last seen in the USA. My mother was a drug addict alcoholic living on the streets of the downtown east side of Vancouver. She was already pregnant according to the pee test she took. She smoked. She did drugs. She drank. She did God knows what else to get her hands on those things. Somehow, I was born underweight but with only mild FASD caused by all of that. I ended up in foster care going in and out from 2-5 until becoming a ward of the province. I went on to get my bachelor's and have broken the cycle. My children have a safe home and food on the table. They know they are loved. Obligatory thanks for the gold edit. Thank you all for the support. I am trying to respond to everyone but between my 3 comments on this thread I am getting overwhelmed. Love you all less than 3. I'm a test tube baby and so is my fraternal twin. So yes, my younger brother is also a test tube baby. Had pygmy glandular fever when I was 16. Nothing special about that. Had pneumonia a few months later, probably due to my weak immune system from the first disease, which caused my lungs to collapse. Very unlikely for a 17-year-old. The hospital I was in couldn't do any more for me, so another hospital came with a rescue team of 8 people and a heart-lung machine. ECMO. Very rare that hospitals have those that can be transported. The hospital only used it the second time and the first time successfully. To pick me up, they brought me to the other hospital. I was in a coma for a couple more days but made it out of hospital within 3 weeks after that. Just before Christmas. A big newspaper wanted the story for Christmas miracles but no, thanks.